Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and it's finally happened. We are fully within the Whispers of the Old Gods meta, and I think we're both having a lot of fun, aren't we?
Yeah, so much fun right now. It's just so fun winning. I think that's really what the most fun of this meta has been. Just winning a lot of games. I miss this because as we all know, the meta got kind of insanely hard in the last like 2 months
It
of
did.
LOE. And in the beginning of every meta, a lot of old players come back, and a lot of new players start playing. A lot of constructive players realize that Arena, especially now, has a lot better rewards than ranked when it comes to giving cards. And so the people who are normally ranked players but still in the middle of building their collections, so not like the super vets, they're coming back to the arena to test it out, and they're having success, right? Because it's an easier meta. But overall, it just makes everything so much easier. And I am averaging more than 10 wins per run. If you don't count my one priest run, then I think I'm averaging more than 11 wins per run. I think I am, if you don't count the priest run. So it's very nice. It's a very good feeling. I like winning, and this is a very good meta right now for just like this like week or two, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you will see most streamers are taking advantage of the slightly easier meta, with the one exception of this guy, this Merps that you guys may know about, whose average has actually gone down,
What
and
are you over 6 right now?
I am over six.
Oh wow,
I am.
huge improvement.
I know. Thank you, sir. Yeah, and it just goes to show that variance is real, or Merps has been tanking spectacularly. But in all honesty, the meta is a little bit easier, and if you guys have not been playing, jump in the pool, guys.
Hmm.
It's a good time to be playing, especially like if new cards doesn't incentivize you, and if better rewards doesn't incentivize you, and if easier opponents doesn't incentivize you, then I don't know what will. I have no
Yeah, and even
idea.
more than that, this is actually the perfect meta for learning. Like more so than just the fact that it's easy and it's more fun. Your mistakes are punished less, so it's easy to learn without getting frustrated at yourself. But also the meta is very much on the board and it's very slow, and that creates a lot of opportunities for how to trade, right? Effective trading, effective like holding back removals, just these like very fundamental skills
Yeah.
that the old meta wasn't as good at teaching, because the old meta taught other skills which are also very useful, but they're generally like more advanced skills. The skills that this meta like focuses on are not terribly complicated, but they're very fundamental. But they're ones in which that I think everybody can use a bit of sharpening up in, like just how much health you want to leave each of your minions, just how much attack you want to have on the board each turn going into your opponent's turn based on what they can do, how to make trades on the board, when to use removals, just like very very basic like tempo game Hearthstone arena stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And not saying the other skills aren't as important, but you can get away with just focusing on saying like, how do I want to trade on the board, trading well on the board, and then leaving it at that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like you can get into this hole, especially before, where like you got pretty good at trading on the board, and you figured all this stuff out and you kind of know it in your head, even if your practices aren't perfect. And then you start learning these more interesting, I think more interesting, and more advanced skills, and then you start focusing on them, but you start hitting a wall where you're like, I'm not improving as much as I think I should because I know all this stuff and I'm doing all this stuff. Why isn't it working? And it could just be the case that your fundamentals are not solid enough. And rather than try to practice fundamentals in a meta that's not terribly suited for it, this one kind of almost forces you to, right? Whether you want to or not, you're going to be making these like trading decisions, these like which minion do I play decisions, these card advantage or tempo decisions so often. And now the answer is not always tempo anymore. Before it was like 90% of the time tempo, tempo, tempo. At least in the early and mid game. Now a lot of the times I'm just like, yeah, sure, let's just skip turn 2. I don't want to lose this card. Let's hero power, warrior, armor up, let's go.
Yeah, you'll definitely see that in the games now, where the victor, either you or the opponent, can oftentimes miss a turn two, can have a subpar turn three, and not have it really be punished because of the speed of the game. Now,
Hmm.
sort of a warning: if you're using this time to hone these skills, it won't be this slow forever. right?
Yeah.
Like it always is the slowest right after an expansion rolls out.
Because
Mostly,
people are
yeah,
conservative, right? If they don't know what you're
yeah.
doing, you're like, I'm gonna trade.
Exactly. Like the skill level tends to be uh a wider range, first of all. And it's like ADWCTA says, like people are careful. Like I know when I play, I'm just like, what do these new cards do? Like I have no idea. I'm like, is there another like twisting nether out there? And I mean there's Doom, but I was just like you want to know these high impact cards and you're a little bit unsure of exactly what your opponents can do at this point. So you do tend to play a little bit more conservative.
Yep. And just when it comes to 2 drops and things like that, like the meta doesn't reward you from getting on the board that early because it has a whole bunch of like biggish taunts, and that just wipes away all your board advantage if you can't remove it. So if you have a large removal or like a whatever removal in your hand and you have a board, it still works really well, right? You're aggro controlling, you're wrecking your opponent, you're racking up that face damage. If you don't have those removals to back up your aggression, you're just gonna lose 3 minions to 1 like twice in the first 8 turns, and then you're dead. Like
Those
you're not
bog
coming back from
creepers.
that.
Those bog creepers will get you, man.
Bog creepers, psychotrons. What do you call that thing? That's like
Cyclopean.
ascension. Psychoplian.
Cyclopean horror.
CH.
Nice, nice. You make it sound like a clothing brand or a cologne.
CH. The cologne for when your opponent has a huge ass board and you don't.
Fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I think we're we're pretty much enjoying this, and it's pretty much what we slash you who made the 13-part series video expected, right?
Yeah. I think every expansion we get like a little more accurate because we start getting the feel like it's just a little better. And this one so far, from what we've seen, at least this part of the meta, I feel like my predictions are pretty dead on, like 90% right. Like, which is good, and it means I don't foresee us changing too many of our tier list values, because we got the speed right, we got the best common card right, we got all the common class cards that I've seen and played with right. It's a couple rares I think we're like a tiny bit off on, but generally I think like I'm almost certain less than 10% of the cards are going to move by anything more than 4 points.
Right, and it was okay. To be fair, it was a little bit easier this time, right?
Yes,
There was no
yes.
mechanics introduced,
Hmm.
and it was even made easier by the fact that we took out an entire section of cards. Although those would have been the
Those
easiest.
would have been the
Yeah,
easiest
yeah, those
cards,
would have been by
right?
far the easiest. So instead of being like 90% right, you could have been like 95% right.
Yeah, I know how 3/4s fit into the meta.
Yeah, but I mean, looking back, sort of like our sort of track record, I think everyone misjudged like GVG, right? And the speed at
Yeah,
which
well, because nothing like that had ever happened before, right?
no,
It would
no.
have been pretty amazing to like get that one dead on.
Yeah, yeah. And after that, everyone has had that experience now. They're like, oh, wait, having an overpowered 1 drop, overpowered 2 drop, overpowered 4 drops would speed up the game, right? Talking collectively about like Zombie Chow, Haunted
Hmm.
Creeper, Pioneer Shredder. And then after that, like Blizzard has made it sort of their goal to slow down the game as well.
Yeah,
And now that whenever we see there's like no new feature and also bog creepers galore, we're like, oh, of course it's going to slow down, right?
right. Yeah, and the new mechanics are old mechanics, right? That helps a lot. Like I know
Yeah.
what taunts do to the meta. We've been adding taunts to the game since like the very beginning, right? We've done like 4 tier list updates where we've been adding taunts and figuring out what happens with the meta. We've seen this before. We've seen all of this before. And if you have the mental, like if you hopefully if you're listening to the Lightforge in our last like huge 2 hour special, or if you watch my 13-part series on YouTube, or if you saw both of them, you enter the meta and you hit the ground running. You were using the Lightforge tier list at the lightforge.com, and you just got it because you knew how the meta was going to do. Nothing was surprising to you, and you knew which cards were going to be good. You knew which cards to play around, namely like Cock Creeper, faceless like summoner or whatever. It wasn't.
Why do you always call it cog creep? It's not a mech.
Sorry, Bog Creeper. You can tell what I wish it was. And you hit the ground running, and your win rate's been a bit higher than usual as well. Hopefully, because that's kind of the goal of all of this. The goal of all of this is not like kind of me saying a bunch of stuff and then everyone going, "Huh, that's interesting." It's for people to like follow it and then get some success with it. So hopefully that's what happened. And if not, well, it's still there. You can still look at it and you can compare it to our tier list. There were some that I changed a little bit on where Merps, said some things and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But the big picture stuff is all there.
Yeah. So we talk about this sort of return of value, right? Like,
deep fried meta. Let's start the segment. Let's officially start our first deep fried meta of Whispers of the Old Gods.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna. Okay, so now that I've I'm going to complete my segue. Okay, so
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your segue. I thought you just like cold started deep fried meta.
Right. So ADWCTA, we are talking about return of value, right? And it's this. You have hearkened this returning of value and returning to these quote classic ways. Tell us
to the old ways.
To the old ways. Okay, the old ways. In
the long forgotten ways that the new children of the Hearthstone who have entered the meta after TGT had only heard rumors of and stories of.
Had only heard whispers
of. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow,
indeed.
Next level.
So ADWCTA, before we deeply dig in and fry this meta, tell us about what you mean exactly.
Okay, so returning to the value game. If you were playing Classic, you knew what the value game was, because one of the streamers you were either watching or you knew a lot of or you used his tier list is Trump. And Trump played the arena very, very, very well. If not the best arena player, definitely one of the top arena players. No one disputed it. His records were insane, and he had a very methodical style, and he explained his plays, and it was a simple philosophy at its base, right? Eventually, if you keep getting good trades on your opponents, right? If your 4/5 eats up a 3/2 and then eats up another minion, and you get a 2-for-1, and you keep doing this, and you guys have kind of similar-ish power decks, which most decks are in the arena, well, then you're just going to win, because eventually you will still have cards and stuff, and your opponent won't. It was extremely simple at its base. There are some practical applications where you have to debate whether tempo would get you more card advantage, or if holding the cards and anti-tempo would get you more card advantage. But generally, it's much more simple than everything we've been talking about since the start of the Lightforge. Because, not because Trump is a simple person who has simple ideas, but it's because that's what worked back then. The more value-oriented a game gets, the more you as a good player want to play a value-oriented game. Because unlike a tempo-based game, unlike a face-based game, a tempo-based game in a slow, consistent meta, that is secure. That is low variance. And as a good player, that's the kind of game that you want to play. You want to force your opponent to make a lot of decisions because your decisions are better than your opponent's decisions, right? You want to force the game to drag out, and you want to try to, because the longer the game is, the lower the variance points, which there will be, right? RNG and stuff like that, the lower that matters. So all of this plays into the fact that Trump is a very good arena player. And so if you were a very good arena player, that's the style you wanted to play. Now, even back then, I thought he was a little too value oriented, and that there were certain tempo cards he was rating very low, especially 1 mana cards like Paladin Secrets or Hand of Protection or whatever, which were rated by Trump at that point to be near unplayable because it never got you a card, right? Best case scenario, you do Hunter's Mark on something, right? You have to trade 2 for 1. Best case scenario. And my arguments for that was really more well, even though you get a 2 for 1 now, you can make up for it later by having more tempo and then getting more cards that way. So even that was still kind of a card advantage argument. But anyway, the idea is at that point, value was really, if not king, still highly important and as important as tempo. And with TGT, that really became not a thing.
Yeah. Wait. Is that my cue to segue?
That's your cue to segue into TGT, so I'm not just talking for 10 minutes.
Okay, so I would have appreciated some kind of warning about this. It's like when an epic tale is being told, and then suddenly it's now you take it, Merps. I'm and then the hobbits went on.
Hey, don't spoil it! Don't spoil it! I never saw that movie.
And then they walked and they fought.
Okay, you know what? That didn't spoil anything. I saw that in the trailer. Is that the ending?
Wait, I'm not gonna spoil
Okay.
Well, first of all, it's a universal story that I think everyone knows by now. But I'm also not gonna spoil it on a podcast. Once again, you're not only surprising me, you're surprising all of our listeners here. Okay,
Fine.
there's Nick. Yes, please. let me learn about this arena meta. What the heck? I just got the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings spoiled for me.
Okay. So let's go back to TGT and the value game. The value game. Why are we saying this is the return of the value game?
Okay, so it's the return of the value game because we mentioned GVG, right? And how it sped things up. And then once everything slowed down, and by slow down, I mean like the game was diluted, right? So AoEs, like AoEs, basically offering rate went down. Offering rates went down for a lot of cards. And once that happens, you just need to focus on the board. And when you need to focus on the board, it just goes back to what you said, right? You have to trade, you have to like assess the board situations, and you just have to react appropriately. You can't just turn 1 Zombie Chow, turn 2 Haunted Creeper, and win the game by turn 5.
Right. And there are none of those cards in Whispers of the Old God that were added. And instead, they added taunts, which really helps slow the game. And like Whispers of the Old Gods, in many ways, is like my perfect expansion because it brought back to prominence two of the mechanics that I thought were the best designed mechanics in the entire game, one of which is taunt, and I thought that was heavily underused, and they obviously focused on it, which I loved. And because it's one of those things where like a good player will use taunts way better than a bad player, like way better, almost better than any other mechanic you can think of. And the other one is Enrage, and I kind of feel the same way about Enrage. You have to plan for Enrages, both in terms of when you drop it, in terms of setting up the board for it, and in terms of how to deal with it. And so the Aberrant Berserker is one of my favorite cards. I love it.
I think the most telling in terms of design space is looking at the 2 neutral 1-drops that they added, right? And those are 1-drops that by themselves are not as powerful, but they're used to set up a board, right? When your 1-drops are used...
So what are the 1-drops?
Good point. There we go. So one is the Tentacle of N'Zoth, which is a 1 mana 1/1 that deals 1 damage to all minions. It's a mini sheep, right? So mini it's sort sheep. Of a you can play it early game, but it's more of a mid-late game sort of minion as well. So it's a 1-drop that doesn't lose its value, but has significantly lessened value for an aggressive deck, right? Like you just don't want to use it. And the other one is Zealous Initiate, which is a 1 mana 1/1, same stat line, and Death Rattle gives +1/+1 to your other minions. So you need to follow it up, and it certainly can be an aggressive card, but you can still see that it keeps its value in the mid to late game as well. As long as you can hold on to a board, you get, I mean, not exactly +2/+2 worth of stats for 1 mana, but similarly.
And Zealous Initiate, I think, is one of the cards that I think we underrated a bit. Like, this is probably the biggest candidate of the common neutrals to move up by more than 4 points. If it does, it might not. It might just move up by 4 points, but it's definitely moving up a little.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we could talk about this at some other time, but Spawn of N'Zoth, similar but even bigger effect. You know, we're seeing this sort of, and if you're keeping the board, these things are definitely a plus, right?
Wait, do you want to move Spawn of N'Zoth up?
I kind of do.
Well, it's at a 26 right now. Okay, fine.
Exactly.
Fine, I'm not going to fight you on that one too hard. But yeah, it has not screwed me over yet, and I have not used it yet, so I don't want to comment on that card. But in theory, it's still pretty bad. I guess in practice, it's a little better. Okay, so... what were we talking about? Okay, so let's get back to the point, which is the return of value. What happens when now we're in the value game, right? You may be wondering, this is all good and all. It's a nice history lesson about where the arena meta used to be, how the arena meta changed, and why we're saying that we're going back. That's interesting information, but that doesn't help me because you have not told me what to do. So what should I do in this meta?
Okay, all right. How about we'll switch off on sort of tips, okay? We'll switch off on some tips. Tip number 1 from Merps, the person whose win record has been tanking. So make sure you copy this down. But tip number 1, value your removals. Like your removals are so important now. Whether it's a small removal or a big removal, like a Hex or Polymorph, value them appropriately. As in, appropriate probably means you should be a little bit more frugal with them now. Like if you can deal with something on the board, deal with it using your minions that you've already sort of, put out the mana and waited a turn for them to, be able to attack. You've already invested in them. Use that instead of the valuable removals that you have in your hand.
Yep. Save removals for situations you can't deal with on the board
Yes.
is tip number one. I totally agree. Normally, if like to because you want to use all your mana or because you want the tempo, you use a removal when you don't have to. That has a very powerful effect in that you start being able to get more face damage in on your opponent. Every time you use a removal to remove a minion instead of a minion, your minion one stays around, and two, your minion just on that turn gets whatever its attack is on your opponent's face. That was all much more useful pre-Whispers of the Old God than it is in the Whispers of the Old God. So, like that aspect of it also just favors slowing it down and then saying, okay, I'll trade the minion and then save my removal for something super efficient. This applies especially with regard to hard removals. I used to see a Yeti and I'm like, assassinate. Now I see a Yeti and I'm like, no, definitely not assassinating that. There's like a million big things coming. It would be so stupid for me to assassinate that. I'll trade 2 minions into that instead, right? Like 2 small minions.
Yeah. So, ADWCTA, what is your tip? And then we'll come back to me.
Okay, so my tip, just following up on that idea, is to bring back the concept of 2 for 1. 2 for 1, back when I was learning the arena from Trump, was something he said all the time. 2 for 1. I got 2 for 1. He 2 for 1 me. It's a simplified concept of card advantage, which looks at cards as actual cards. If you listen to the Lightforge from the beginning, you know that there's like a whole episode that we devoted to why cards aren't cards. And I'm not going to get into it, but basically cards aren't cards. Cards aren't card advantage. They have nothing to do with each other. But as a really like, I guess, simplified way for learning, you can think of cards as helping you get card advantage. And in that case, if you keep spending 2 cards to remove one of your opponent's single card, they will eventually have more cards than you, meaning they will eventually have more card advantage than you. That's not strictly true. And if you're advanced enough, don't go back to that way of thinking. But for people who are either struggling with this meta or struggling with an adjustment to a more value-oriented meta, I still think that's a very good gateway learning tool to use, right? Instead of like trying to get this like wider concept of what card advantage really is, you can very practically focus on not getting 2 for 1. So if any time you trade 2 of your minions for 1 of your opponent's minions, go back, figure out how that happened. It's usually because you spent a removal when you didn't have to, or you set up the board incorrectly and your opponent played a minion to counter yours. And on the other hand, every time you force your opponent to trade 2 of his minions into your minion, think, whoa, what did I do right here? Like, how did I gain that edge? Was it the correct minion placement? Was my opponent just stupid and did something earlier that wasn't ideal? Either way, if you get enough 2 for 1s, you end up with more cards. If you end up with more cards in this meta, you win the game. Why? Because if your opponent's trying to go face, you have taunts. There are so many taunts, they're all good, you draft them all anyway. And so you will taunt your way to victory. Like, taunts are the worst for the aggro game, right? You put up a You put up a Cyclopean Horror, it takes 3 of their little...
Cyclopean. It's a
Cyclope. You put up a CH, it takes out 3 of their minions, and they never have those minions again. Remember what I said about removals. If you use a removal on something, all your minions stay alive and get 1 extra attack every single turn. If they're removed off the board because you played a taunt and they couldn't remove it, they're not there anymore. They're just dead. Your opponent has lost like 20 damage on your face over the course of like 4 or 5 turns.
I'm sorry. I just like how you're teaching our audience about death. It's like, if they die, they don't come back. It's like
a very important concept in Hearthstone. There is no graveyard mechanic.
There is no farm upstate for these minions. These minions are gone, okay? Unless you're the priest and you're resurrecting them.
No, that's just a copy. It's totally different. The soul of the minion is forever dead.
All right. Anyways, that is a very good advice. We'll come back to me. My next advice for this new meta is really, you can phrase it in one of 2 ways. It's either challenge your opponent to having that that clear, whether it's AoE or a big clear, or just, if you don't want to just say challenge, saying like reevaluate your own calculations of your opponents having that flame strike or having that consecration. And I've seen it in many games where I've challenged my opponents to have it, and my opponents have just said, like, it's going on to like turn 6, and he hasn't evaluated my ability to have a consecration, but suddenly he just floods and he's like, you don't have it. Just like statistically, it's very rare that you have a consecration. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't have it. It's not in my hand, right?
Yeah, it got reduced by, I think, 15%.
Yeah.
in this new meta. Maybe more than that. No, probably 15%, maybe a little more than that. Because the set counts as like 1.25 or 1.33. What its actual number of cards that they added are. We were in like about 15, a little more than 15%. That's how much it was diluted by.
Right.
That's pretty insane. That's a significant drop, right? Like if you had a 100 on the test, you have like an 82 now.
It's good to see you again.
There you go. I don't know why that is an appropriate analogy.
Just showing you how big of a difference it is, right? Like you're very happy to get a A+, but you're like okay to get a B, B-, but you're not very happy about it anymore. That's how you should feel about playing into Flame Strikes. Like you used to be like, oh no, like whatever you felt in LOE about playing into Flame Strikes, just think, okay, well now if he were an A+ on the Flame Strike, he's now a B-.
What is an A+ versus B- Flame Strike? Also,
some people understand me.
No one does. Okay, let's get that out of your head.
Do.
No. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, back to you for your tip.
Oh crap, I need a tip. Okay, so here's a tip. This is a really, really hot tip, straight off the presses. We could have given this to you before the meta even started, but we didn't like break it down to that granular level of what to actually do practically. So here's a tip. On turn 6, going into your opponent's turn 7, don't play a Boulderfist Ogre. Don't do it, especially if your opponent has a ping. Definitely don't play a 6/6. Don't play that like Pit Fighter. Play enough stuff, if you have the option, where your board has attack equal to 8 or more, and that you have a good distribution, which you can hit 8, but don't make them big minions. Because you know what's going to happen to your big minions? They're going to die. Your opponent's going to Cog Creeper, Bog Creeper, and your minis are going to die. Unless, of course, you have a hard removal, right? So always prepare for your opponent to have a Bog Creeper on curve. Not that they always will. They actually usually won't. But they will a fair number of times, and if you don't prepare for it, the consequences are disastrous. You like just lose the game there. So it's like they're probably not gonna have a Flame Strike, right? They're really probably not gonna have a Flame Strike, but you prepare for it on turn 7 anyway. Why? Because if you don't and you put 4 minions out there like you really, really want to, you get Flame Strike. Well, now you've lost 4 cards to his 1, right? You don't even get 2 for 1, you get 4 for 1. You're really far behind on card advantage. You gotta go Tempo to win, and if you don't pull it off, you just lose. So, Bog Creeper, a little less frequently seen than Flame Strike, but not that much less frequently seen.
Yeah. All right. And I think 2 tips for each of us is good enough, right?
You don't have a third tip?
No, I don't. That's why I think it's good enough. Yes.
Okay, well, I have more tips.
You have more. Are these actually like subs? Because I could like say like small things, but like okay, let's hear your tips. And judging by the quality of your tips, I will determine whether or not I have.
I just have one more tip.
Okay, go.
I wanted to make it 3 because it's the arena and everything's by 3s.
That. Just say it. Just say it.
Okay. So my tip is, and this may seem obvious, but I don't think some people have gotten it, because at least the people I face sometimes, I'm like, no, you can't do that. No, what are you doing? No, don't do that. And what they do is they assume you don't have taunts. Like, they assume you don't have taunts, and or they go all in and assume you won't top deck a taunt. There are so many taunts in the meta right now. Just assume your opponent has a taunt. Even if your opponent just played a taunt, just assume your opponent has another taunt. Heck, if your opponent played 2 taunts in a row, assume your opponent has a 3rd taunt. Do not play as if your opponent does not have a taunt unless you make a play and you're like, oh, a taunt would be perfect here, and then your opponent doesn't play a taunt. At that point, you can have a read that your opponent doesn't have a taunt, and then you should assume that he has about a 1/3 chance to draw a taunt every turn. That's not really the odds. I think the statistical odds probably going to be more like 1 in every 5 turns. But really, you're going to get taunted. So if you're trying a smork strategy, like, be smart about it. Don't go all in on it unless you're really definitely going to lose otherwise. It's not that smorking is wrong. It's it's not always wrong now. It's definitely still a very good option sometimes, but it's more of a I'm going to lose the value game anyway kind of move, which is how it used to be back in Classic. It's no longer a this may just be a better move even if I could still win the value game. It's very rarely the case where it's correct to smork if you can't finish off. And by smork, I mean hitting your opponent's face, for people who don't know the lingo. It's very rarely the correct choice now to hit your opponent's face at the cost of value unless you have enough like either hard removals or direct reach or just something that will be able to get through taunts and help you finish the game that way. If you don't have that, like, just hunker down, and play the value game. The chances of their opponent having a taunt and screwing over your plans is much higher than the chances of them having a Deathwing and screwing over your plans, or like a sprint, or like whatever, right? Something that totally shifts the card advantage calculus.
Okay, all right. I mean, I don't think that was the greatest tip of all time, but I will accept.
I think it'll help a lot of people, just from what I observe about how people are playing against me.
Okay, I think that's fair. And I guess my tip would be really learn the mental aspect of the game. New cards weren't the only thing that were introduced. We also have a new emote. And in my opinion, if we were to do a tier list of salty emotes, it would be like premium tippy top, like S class tier by far.
Nah, I wouldn't go that far. It's not Feast of Wintervale. All right, it's not Feast of Wintervale.
No. Happy Feast of Wintervale is gone. Okay, stop living in the past, man. You just gotta let it go.
This whole meta's about the past.
You just gotta let it go. Okay, and now
look, old in the name.
Why do you think we are seeing so many shamans in the arena these days? Because if you've been playing, you will realize we've seen a lot of shamans. It's not just because they got really good cards. They also got one of the best emotes, okay? And that's a deadly combination when you can play a good card
what is there also
and tell them that that's incredible. All right.
Oh God, that's right.
When you can tell your opponent how incredible their move and your moves are, it is a deadly force. Okay, so make sure you do that. I would tell you to play Athiuen because his WoW is absolutely infuriating, but don't. It's not.
No one play Athiuen. No one play Rexar. We're gonna play Rexar after this, but you shouldn't. We're not going to talk too much about class balance today. We're going like very high level general, like this is how you win some games in this new meta. But if we were to talk about class balance, well, I guess we will at the end because we got to talk about the Hunter. Hunter and Priest not doing so well, right? As expected.
Yep, as expected. But anyways, that's my tip. And I think it's a more applicable tip than ADWCTA's final tip, which is pretty much just a second tip.
That's the best tip, right? If there's any tip, that would be the tip I give people. Like, I just didn't think of it because I'm not as in tune with the meta as you are.
No, you're obviously not. All right. So, yeah, guys, jump back into the arena. Hopefully you guys have some success. And remember to don't spam the emote. That's poor taste. Use it effectively, okay? Try to get that 2-for-1 emote value, all right?
That's the best.
Yeah.
You emo once and your opponent does 2 emotes and you still feel like you won the emo war.
I know. That's perfect. So time that emote very well. Make sure you use it right before an evolve. Make sure you use it right before you use your Master of Evolution. And make sure you do it right before they're about to concede. So there you go, guys. That's a hot tip off the presses from Merps.
All right. Question from the GOAT time. Question from the GOAT is brought to you by our wonderful Patreons. Patreon.com/Grinning Goat. These people fed the GOAT. Lets us do what we do, and huge shout out to them. So what is and now everything's turning GOAT, by the way. If you guys haven't noticed, our viewers right now who are watching live definitely know, our Twitch channel has changed names. It is no longer twitch.tv/ADWCTA and you can't tell your friends about it. It is now twitch.tv/Grinning Goat, which is what me and Merps play under. It's our team or our company or our group or our whatever you want to call it, right? We're the Grinning Goat. And now, if you've been hesitant about telling your friends about this weird ADWCTA thing that you may or may not be able to remember, you can tell them about the Lightforge, you can tell them about the Grinning Goat. And we'll also be merchandising over the summer, so you can get a goat t-shirt or like whatever, right? And if you're a longtime viewer of our stream, you can redeem your grass for, we haven't figured this out exactly, but either for heavily discounted merchandise or for just free merchandise. And that'll be really awesome. And we have design teams helping us out right now doing it. Anyway, let's go on to the question from the GOAT. I really like this. I like that we're consolidating into like the Grinning Goat and the Lightforge, and that's our like 2 things now.
Yes, I do enjoy having something with not just your name on it.
But my name is so good for marketing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's what everyone makes it out to be. It's like a Rorschach blob, right? It's like, what do you see in this? It's like, oh, I see, it's like, I see happiness, or it's like, oh, I see my father's disappointment.
No one sees happiness. This is what I've
Okay,
learned
well,
about
maybe
this
closer
Warcraft
to I
test.
see my father's disappointment in me.
There we go.
Question from the Go time onto a happier topic. Who knows? I don't know what your answer to this question is going to be. But we asked this question before the expansion hit. And it's a question I ask for basically like every expansion as well. Sort of, what do you think the best flavor card is going to be? Like, what's going to be like the best battle cry? What's going to be like just sort of the best sound bit from these cards, right? So now that the expansion has come out and you've had chances to play these cards, what do you like? So this has nothing to do with the card's power or it's like placing the meta. Just sort of like, you know, which card do you like?
Okay, very clear winner, I think. And it is the Undercity Huckster. Yes, it's only a rare card.
Good choice.
It completely, very rarely can a card have its own like sound bites and have them completely destroy the identity of another card. This is how powerful Undercity Huckster is. Like, this is how powerful his like battle cry and his attacks are. So first of all, he's a really creepy dude.
Yeah.
They did the voice acting really well. I'm uncomfortable playing him or facing him. I just want to kill him off the board so I don't have to hear it again. But you probably shouldn't because the death rattle gives your opponent a card. Anyway, he comes on the board and he says something like, "Do you want some funnel cakes?" And that completely ruins the reputation of Refreshment Vendor. And I don't know if funnel cakes is a drug or if there's a drug called funnel cakes and the Refreshment Vendor is actually selling real funnel cakes. But this is new meta level defining emotes. And then when he attacks, when Undercity Huckster attacks, he says "buy one" in the most creepy way, like creepy, forceful, I'm about to stab you in the neck way possible. And I like that. I like that aggression. I think that's someone you want on your side when you're
like
in the
Undercity
battle.
Huckster, it's like he might be a crazed drug addict, but like that shows a lot of passion, right? Like, yeah. You sound like you're interviewing this guy. And it's like, so what are your qualifications? Like, well, I'm I'm really addicted to this substance, and I have violent outbursts. You're like, I like that in a candidate.
But
I like
he's
your
also
honesty.
a business person.
I like your, I like the passion that you show for your product and
Entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Yes. So, man, it's a good thing we're not hiring anytime soon. Okay. All right. Anyways, my vote for sort of my favorite, and it's a little bit more subtle, right? Like, I like Evolved Kobold. Now, the 4-mana 2/2 with spell damage +2.
What does Evolve Kobold say?
So
I don't even know. I've never seen this card.
Back, and remember, Kobold Geomancer, when it comes out, it says take Candle.
Take Candle, of course.
Right.
It's a classic.
Evolved Kobold, I guess, is like the arch nemesis, because when he comes out, he says, "I took your candle," but he says it so grimacingly, like, so it's like, and it's so angry and it's so sinister, you know. And
I guess that makes sense if the candle was the +1 spell damage and he took a candle from another Kobold.
Yeah.
Now he gets 2.
And it's candle wars between these two, because Kobold Geomancer, when he attacks, he says "mine," right? Evolve Kobold, when he attacks, he says "thank you." and when Evolved Kobold dies, he says "mine." So it is a candle war. Okay.
Oh my god.
I know. You didn't even know there was such a candle war going on within all of these other battles, but we are truly witnessing a time of strife and conflict. Okay.
I can't wait for the next Kobold to come out.
I have no idea. So 6-mana 3/3 spell power +3. I don't know. He's just maybe then we'll finally figure out what they're doing with all of these candles. I don't know.
I'm sure we already know if we just knew any bit of Warcraft lore.
Well, no, that's when we find out that candles are like a drug as well. And this is actually just
World of Warcraft is just about drugs.
Oh man. All right. Anyways, that's sort of my my offering for flavor.
Okay, card good bad is where we tell you whether a card is good or bad, and we've been doing a pretty bad job about it earlier by picking cards that were neither good nor bad, or like good in some cases and bad in others. So we went for a while and we talked about only good cards. And I think we're going to continue that now and bring this really back to what this segment's about. Good cards and bad cards. And today's card is Nerubian Prophet, which we talked a little about the last episode.
99% of cards, you draw it and you're able to play it. Like it's only a factor of how much mana crystals you have. And
these are the kind of cards where evaluating their value like really separates the men from the boys
when
it comes to being able to predict and being able to like have a good
4/4, and in which at the start of your turn you reduce the mana cost by 1. So if you have it in your mulligan, by the time that it rolls around to turn 3, you have a 3 mana 4/4, right? And it was a card that was a little bit tough to evaluate because you have to look at all of the situations, right? It's not just about the board state. It's not just about sort of the minion stats. It's about when you draw it and then when can you play it, right? Because with 99% of cards, you draw it and you're able to play it. Like it's only a factor of how much mana crystals you have. And
these are the kind of cards where evaluating their value like really separates the men from the boys
when
it comes to being able to predict and being able to like have a good feel of like the fundamentals of the arena.
That humbleness, yes.
Because I mean, you were too after I talked you into it, right? Like, we're very confident about this particular evaluation, even though it's a highly difficult card. Because it's just, you have to play out all the scenarios. You have to figure out where everything is, how useful things are.
Okay, all right. So, ADWCTA, as one of the true, as you would say, men of the evaluation process, tell us why this card is good.
Well, besides the fact that it's a 3 mana 4/4, and a 3 mana 4/4 is insane. Like, a 3 mana 3/4 is incredible, right? A 3 mana 4/4 that can't even attack the target you aim at is really, really good. So a 3 mana 4/4 is just beyond bonkers. Now, if it's not drawn, right, like the focus that people put on is on its downside, which is, well, if I don't draw it in my mulligan, which I probably won't, in this whole middle period, I will just have a dead card in my hand. You have a dead card in your hand for 2 turns, at most, before it becomes a 4 mana 4/4, which is a totally normal card that is okay to play. And then if you can just find it in your other 2 or 3 cards in your hand to play something else, it becomes a 3 mana 4/4 again, which is not that good outside of turn 3, but still, it's a up-tempo card compared to what it should be, and if you could just hold it a couple turns longer, it's like free. So even if you draw it earlier on, and like, you know, it's stuck in your hand for a while, it's still a really good card. It's no longer as insane as a 3 mana 4/4, but it's still an insane card. And then if you top deck it, it's just okay, right? Because you don't care about the mana at that point. You may be thinking, oh, but sometimes I just draw a card and I need to play it because the other card is like, you know, I literally can't play it. It's turn 8, and you know, this is turn, and I have a 9 mana card and I need to play this card and I can't. That happens very, very few % of the times when you draw this card. If you draw this card in an actual top deck situation, it's fine, right? Because you don't care about mana. It's just the same as if you drew a regular 4/4, which is fine. It's not good. It's not bad. We wouldn't rate it a 70 for that. But it doesn't like totally hurt you. And on the other hand, this game is being stretched out so freaking long these days, which means you have so many more cards in your hand that your very assumptions about how many cards you have in your hand from LOE meta has changed. I no longer assume I have the same amount of cards in my hand as I did in LOE because I don't. I have more cards more frequently because there's bigger cards.
Yeah.
So you take all these assumptions in, you bake them in, you get a really high value. This is a card that wins games. Neutral commons that win games are very few and far in between, and this is one that unconditionally can win games. It's not even like you have to have a board, right? That's the one part where Cultmaster fails.
Yeah, that's very true. And I have seen, because of the speed of this game, sometimes you have other plays and they just get out a 2 mana or 1 mana 4/4 in the mid/late game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that could really swing it. Even though the impact is going to be a little bit smaller for that turn, the fact that you can tempo out that hard at that point of the game, and with the decrease in AoE removals, that could just be it. That could just be sort of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, like think about ambush, right? From what is like beneath the ground. Like, you know how annoying it is when you pull up one of those, and that's after your opponent anti-tempo. Like, is that 3 mana?
It's 3 mana for potentially 3 of them. I know, exactly.
So just imagine them never having anti-tempo themselves, and then all of a sudden getting a 4/4. Like, that's what happens with this card, even in its not good use case scenarios.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about this card this week mostly because before the show, I was like, all right, we got to pick a card that we know is good. Like, let's not talk about one that's on the fence and then.
And we didn't want to talk about Cog Creeper again because we kept Bog Creeper.
You're right. I don't want to talk about Cog Creeper.
Okay, so Bog Creeper, I think we talked about way more, even more than Nerubian Prophet. And Nerubian Prophet really it's not as good as Bog Creeper, but it's the next best card. It's the second best card in this meta, I think, pretty convincingly. So we feel like it was time to kind of give it its recognition now that we've all played with it quite a number of times and we've faced it and all that good stuff.
All right, is it time for class talk?
It's time for class talk. You know what class we're playing today?
It is the Hunter.
It's the best class in the Whispers of the Old God meta.
Now, my first evaluation of the Hunter is very mediocre in terms of the emote, right? Astounding. It's got a subtle hint of arrogance, which is good because you do want to be a little bit subtle. That's really what elevates the priests. WoW into the stratospheric levels. But it just doesn't offer the same amount of punch. Rexar's voice is a little bit lacking. It just doesn't have the if we're talking about value, it just doesn't have the value with that's incredible, right? And
that's really sad because Hunter's one of the classes that can pull off the most insane combos.
Yes, it really is. So with Hunters, I expected a lot more, and it's been a little bit disappointing. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about these cards and how they play out. So I think, have you played Hunter?
No, I haven't played Hunter. Okay. This will be the first time I play Hunter.
All right,
I play Priest, not Hunter.
Okay, yeah. So I've played Hunter
you
twice. Once on stream, it was.
So just to set this up, before we entered into the Whispers of the Old God meta, I had stepped out and said Hunter was going to be definitely the worst class, and Priest was going to be a significant step better. And Merps came out and said the exact opposite. Yeah. He said Hunter was going to be a significant step above Priest, and Priest was going to be the worst class.
Yeah. The conclusion so far is they're both.
We were both wrong. They're equally awful.
I mean, they're both pretty bad right now. Who knows, right? So my results have been 6-win Hunter on stream, 10-win Hunter off stream.
I have a 4-win Priest. 4-win. Do you have any priests?
Yes, I had I think it was. Oh man, I really don't remember.
Okay, so you had an on stream. We had a co-op off stream that was 7 wins. And I had a 4-win Priest on stream.
Yeah. But so the thing with Hunters now, like what I talked about before the expansion hit, I was like, all right, if you look at the cards that they got, the power level isn't there, but they got curve cards, right? Fiery Bat, Carrion Grub, those are curve cards. Infested Wolf is just a very good, they got very good low to mid drops.
And other classes, they really, this is one thing, like I said, right? I'm not shy about it. I don't like fake humbleness. I like telling it as it is. So when I get things right, I say I get things right. And I think I nailed this meta. But if I were to list one area in which I went in that direction, but I don't think I went far enough, it is the how much fewer 2-drops we're having now. I think that's making a much bigger impact than I had given it credit for. I think my analysis is always, you're going to see a slight drop in 2-drops, but you're still going to average 5.5, 6 2-drops if you just draft normally, and that's not the case. You're averaging 5 to 5.5. We're about a half 2-drop away from what I was expecting. And yeah, this is going to build into the Hunter analysis because Hunters don't have that problem. Well, they do have that problem because they don't have 2-drops, but they have other curve cards.
Yeah. And you'll see a lot of times when you play Hunter, if you draft the Fiery Bats, if you draft the Carrion Grubs, and you draft for curve, your opponent is much more likely to miss their drops now if they're playing a slower class. Now, of course, they can still outlast you, right? And Bog Creepers are still prevalent, and it gets awkward starting from basically the mid game onwards. But what I've seen with Hunter is that you still have to play aggressive. You don't really have a choice. And you don't exactly feel comfortable because you know that they can always taunt up and keep on taunting. And it's Cyclopean horrors and psychotrons, and then they keep on taunting, and you get them down to like 14 health, which isn't exactly enough, and they just outlast you, and it feels bad. But you do want to take advantage of the fact that you are going to curve out more often than they are, and you can use this to your advantage and get them really close to death before they start really taunting up. And you're still walking this sort of like very fine line that the hunter has always walked, right? Like when you win, like when you win, you have like 1 or 2 cards in your hand. They might have like 5, and you just barely like hero power them to death, which is fine. Like it's as long as you win at the very end, it doesn't really matter how you win. But it is not as comfortable as establishing your board, just rolling through your opponent in terms of value, and you win with like 3 minions and 4 cards in your hand, and they have like nothing, right? Like it's a barren wasteland on the other side. So I think it's still powerful. It's just that there were tools given on both ends. On the hunter end, it's curve. On the other end, it's taunts.
So I take a different approach to Hunter. I think mid-range Hunter should be doing a little bit better. Not like Control Hunter, not like late mid-game Hunter, but a more mid-gamey Hunter that relies upon Beasts. Because they just added a ton of Beasts, and the Beast synergies are in, and they added a bunch of taunts, which means you're not going to be able to get the damage to your opponent's face that you normally can, without like just hanging around on the board for a couple turns longer than you would normally want to, or you would normally want to have to hang around. And once you're done, like once you're removed off the board, you are never getting any more damage in except with direct damage, because your opponent will play a taunt. That's like near guaranteed now. Before, you just kept like drawing, right? You're like, oh, please don't draw a taunt. You probably won't. And then at some point, I'll draw a charge or stealth minion, and then, I'll be able to hit. Not the case anymore. You can't charge and stealth your way to victory anymore as the hunter. You can hero power your way to victory, and that hero power is as powerful as it ever is. Probably even more so, because if your opponent's a little slower to get on the board, you have a couple more turns just naturally to use your hero power. But you really got to make sure you break through the taunt and you deal enough damage, which means when you're breaking through the taunt, you need enough damage on the board to break through. And again, like curving out is a part of both of these strategies, right? Like no matter how aggressive you go, curving out is very important. And curving out only becomes less important if you're playing control. So it's always good to see these cards. I see what Blizzard tried to do with the Hunter. I don't think they're like super successful with it, but it did make Hunter like a not unplayable arena class, I guess, because we talk with Shady Bunny, who is like the Hunter expert, and I think his perspective up to this point is, well, it's not as good as it was before, but it's still doable. It's not like it fell totally off a cliff. So to that end, like, okay, that's like after seeing where the meta is going and where Blizzard was shifting the meta, if Hunter didn't totally fall off a cliff, that's pretty good. Like we're grading Hunter on a different curve than we grade other classes because of where the meta went, right? Like Hunter can still win games sort of less efficiently, but it can still do it. Hey, that's good, right? Like overall.
Not bad.
Yeah. And I guess we should talk about Priest a little too, because that's like the natural contrasting point. And then you'll see what we do in this Hunter draft. I'm really excited about this Hunter draft. It's the first time I'm going to play Hunter, and I have these theories about Beast Hunter that I'm going to try to make a reality. And Merp so far has not had the most success with Hunter, so he's not going to be able to like push me around.
Wait, 6 and 10 is fine with Hunter, I'm thinking. But
I mean, it's fine, but it's also a soft meta, right? Like 6 and 10 is fine. I definitely don't think you're doing. I will say this, Hunter is probably your best class in this meta right now. The way Priest was in the LoE meta for me for the longest time. In the same way.
I did get 12 with Warlock.
Okay,
so that's probably my best class.
By the way, is Warlock just getting really insanely good now?
Yeah, Zoo is very good. Because you have value and you have curve, right?
Right,
so
right, exactly.
Zoo is very, very good.
Exactly. You keep your curve and you have the hero power for the value.
Exactly.
Like, despite getting
and taunts were always good,
too.
right?
Yeah,
taunts were always good.
Taunts were always great for Warlock.
Right. Big minions were always not so great, but taunt big minions were and we never had them really, right? Like Fen Creeper was never big enough. You're just like, ugh, not enough stats. Bog Creepers have enough stats, and they're like, it's perfect. I think in terms of the meta shifting in a way for a class, it really benefited the Warlock, right?
Yeah.
And if you're talking about slower meta, you might think it benefits Priest a little bit, but
I thought it benefited Priest.
Yeah. Well,
but having played as Priest, it's a bit iffy right now whether it's benefiting Priest. Like, the things I'm thinking that happened to the meta all happened. I am able to get more things on the board than I used to as Priest, but somehow I haven't been able to translate the having things on board to the ridiculous snowball effect that I think Priest should be able to have. And I haven't quite figured out why that's the case yet, but we'll stay tuned. This is still the year of the Priest. We will we'll diligently look into why that's happening. And that's a good point for learning, right? Because I made a prediction that Priest is going to be better than Hunter, and so far at least, and maybe once the meta settles, that'll be more true. I still have hope for that, because the meta is in flux right now, right? I guess we didn't talk about it in Deep Fried Meta, but if you haven't been here through the release of a large expansion, the first 2 weeks looks nothing like the actual meta, what the actual meta will be in a month. The meta is a lot softer. Things that work now don't work before. You can get away with a lot of like a lot of the weaknesses of the new cards are not yet exploited. So like something like Flame Wreath, Faceless, and like probably even Faceless Summoner, they're just gonna get worse from here. Not that much worse. They're pretty normal cards, but you'll see people start preparing for them more the way it's like telling you to prepare for Bog Creeper, right? And then they'll fall down a bit. But we'll see where it ends up. But at least so far, Priest is able to get on the board. That's not the problem anymore. For some reason, getting on the board as the Priest is no longer as big of an advantage as it used to be. And that may be because of the Bog Creeper, right? Like, if you're a Priest and you can heal your minions, it doesn't matter if your minion has 6 health or less. You can heal it up. It's still going to die to that Bog Creeper. Okay, so...
All right.
That's it for us. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Have fun in the arena, guys.
Yeah, definitely. And see you guys next week for the Lightforge. We have much more to talk about this meta.